Harry Maguire was once considered one of the best defenders in the Premier League. However, today, he's at risk of being stripped of the Manchester United captaincy, has received death threats and boos from his own fans, and has even been made fun of by rival teams for his poor performances. So what happened? Well, he came to the right place to find out. Harry Maguire has been playing football since a very young age and mainly spent his childhood playing in a school playground or at his childhood garden located in the village of Mossborough, northeast England. However, Harry would get his first big move in the footballing world when he joined Sheffield United Academy at the age of 7. At the academy, he played as a midfielder all the way up until the age of 16, and the skills learned while playing as a midfielder would play a large part in helping him be a ball-playing centre-back in senior football. However, his promotion to senior football would be the first obstacle Harry would have to face in his career. He had been called up to a Sheffield United first-team squad that was on the brink of relegation from the English Championship. 17-year-old Harry went on to make 5 appearances in the 2010-11 season, but it sadly wasn't enough to stop the Blades from going down. The Blades would unfortunately stay in League One, only finishing in 3rd place the next season. However, it wasn't all doom and gloom for Harry though. He very much impressed in his minor appearances and earned himself a starting place in the Sheffield team. Harry would go on to be a standout in the squad, winning not only the Young Player of the Year award, but also the Player of the Year award, finishing the season in the League One Team of the Year for 2011-12, all at the age of 18. The future was certainly looking bright for the young Englishman. He was starting to turn heads, and even if not many had noticed, it was the beginning of the rise to fame, and a move to a better side was only a couple seasons away at this rate. And that move finally came on July 29th, 2014 to the then Premier League side Hull City in a deal worth £2.5 million, signing on a 3-year contract. This was a massive step up for Harry. It was finally the opportunity to show what he could do on a bigger stage. However, once again, this would actually be another obstacle in Harry's career. Hull were a team who would be fighting for survival in the Premier League and therefore decided it would be wiser to rely on their more experienced defenders, Michael Dawson, James Chester, and Curtis Davis. This meant that Harry would be lacking game time that would be critical to the development of a young centre-back. He only made his debut in December of that season, 5 months after being signed. Hull understood Harry needed more time and so decided to loan him to Wigan till the end of the season, where he featured much more regularly. However, during this time away, Hull would not be able to stay up in the Premier League. This was now the 2nd time where Harry had been relegated in his career. However, on both occasions, he didn't really have a chance to influence either side. Now, this isn't to say that if Harry had played in both sides, they wouldn't have been relegated, but certainly something to think about. Hull would go on to be promoted back to the Premiership in the next season, and Harry would go on to play a decent role in helping them there, playing 22 games in the season. But it was really when they moved back to the Prem is where Harry became a regular starter. Hull's manager at the time, Mike Phelan, grew a liking to Maguire and made him a more important part of the team. Little did they know their paths would once meet again down the line, but we'll get to that shortly. Hull would sadly not stay in the Premier League, only managing to win 9 games that season. However, Harry would go on to be voted as the Hull City Player of the Year by fans and the players. Such a good individual season got him the move that kept him in the Premier League, as Leicester City splashed out £12 million to sign the now 24-year-old in 2017. Harry would become a mainstay in the Leicester defence. His aerial prowess was particularly impressive as it made him a great threat defensively and offensively, netting 5 goals in his time at Leicester. He was incredibly comfortable in possession and helped progress the ball up the pitch all the time. However, Harry's biggest weakness was his 1v1 defending, but Leicester did a great job of surrounding him with great 1v1 defenders like the Ndidis of the world, as well as having a solid, compact defensive structure, so this was rarely a problem that he faced there. He also became known for being an Iron Man, seemingly never missing games. In fact, in the 2017-18 season, he actually didn't miss a single minute of the season and was awarded Player of the Season as well as Players Player of the Season at the club's end of season awards. And at this point, Harry's stocks were at an all-time high. This didn't go unnoticed, and so the biggest club in English football decided to pick him up in August 2019, Manchester United. But it wasn't as simple as just signing Harry Maguire. Manchester United paid a whopping £80 million, making Harry the most expensive defender in football history. Now, this is what many people would consider the beginning of a chain of events that would go on to be Harry's downfall. The expectations attached with being the most expensive defender in the world were always going to be incredibly difficult to match, especially considering that Harry himself bared no control over that tag. A couple months into his time at United, Harry would also be giving the captain's armband, further adding to the scrutiny attached to his name. Even what would be considered an average performance for others would always just feel unsatisfactory coming from him. But then a bombshell hit, as during the summer between the 1920 season and the 2021 season, Harry was arrested and found guilty of aggravated assault, resisting arrest and attempted bribery while on holiday in the Greek island of Mykonos. Maguire was given a suspended jail term of 21 months and 10 days as it was his first offence and the 3 charges were considered misdemeanours. But this then meant that the already most scrutinised player in the Premier League went into the next season with an even bigger magnifying glass on him than in the past. And sadly for Harry, his performances never seemed to live up to those huge expectations. He'd go on to have plenty of poor performances where his leadership ability was questioned and fans demanded he be dropped, yet he seemed to rarely ever be removed from the starting lineup, even after dropping calamitous performances, and the armband constantly stayed around his arm even with the likes of Cristiano Ronaldo being in the squad. So what happened to Harry Maguire? How did he go from looking like one of the most reliable, solid centre-backs in the Premier League to being viewed as a failure and even by some the worst signing in United history? Well, we actually need to go back in our story because you see, what I didn't mention was that after the Greece incident, Harry did come back and play in the 2021 season, and even though he had some understandably shaky performances early on, he had a really great stretch of form where he looked like his top self from previous clubs. Maguire and Shaw developed a really strong partnership on the left side of Man United's defence, and although not perfect, Ollie's United side largely remained a compact unit, meaning a lot of Maguire's weaknesses were never prevalent or exposed. People weren't calling for his head, he wasn't receiving death threats, and even though many still felt like he wasn't the ideal type of figure to be a Manchester United captain, the large consensus from fans was that Harry's centre-back partner Lindelof was the real issue in the back line. Plenty of people called for Bailly to start next to him instead, and it was a common consensus that United would need to sign a new centre-back to pair with Harry in order to finish higher than second place in the next season. And when Harry got injured in a game against Villa on the 9th of May and was set to miss the Europa League final, many people felt it was a huge loss for the side. And even though it's highly unlikely that Harry's inclusion in the final against Villarreal would have made a difference, it still remains a big what if in terms of how things would have played out had he. Now, I don't say all this just to defend Harry Maguire, I just feel like context is important as the discourse surrounding Harry has gone to complete shit. You see, Harry Maguire in the 2021 season has been absolutely awful, no doubt about that. It's clear that the captain's armband weighs too heavy on him, making him feel the need to try and be a hero in defense when his physical capacity is such that he just can't be. He's too slow, he turns slow, he just isn't that guy. But it's also clear that the side's lack of defensive structure under Ollie and even under Ralph have meant that Harry has constantly been exposed to situations where he was always bound to fail, as well as the rest of the Manchester United defence. I myself on this channel have highlighted his lack of a presence in the box this season, which has cost United dearly, but I'll also highlight where there have been false narratives perpetuated around Maguire in an attempt to justify hate towards him. For example, it's just become widely accepted now that he can't play in a team that wants to play in a high line because he's too slow? But this can't possibly be true because one, there are many defenders who play in a high line that are slow, and Harry himself has effectively played in a high line in the past for Leicester. So there just seems to be a lack of balance in conversation around Maguire. Some people going too far, claiming he's the worst defender in the Premier League and that he's an absolutely awful player and has never played good in his life. Some people arguing that he's one of the best defenders in the world and absolving him of all blame for mistakes he's made this season. And the truth is that it's neither. Realistically, it's somewhere in the middle. Now, Harry has had a very bad individual season, and long-term probably shouldn't be the captain of Manchester United. But is he the worst player in the Premier League? No. Is he not good enough to play for United next season under Ten Hag? Certainly not. It's very likely Ten Hag will like Maguire for his on-ball abilities. And as a United fan, all you can really do is hope that his performances will improve in a well-structured, compact defensive system, which he has shown he can do in the past. Maguire's £80 million price tag was absolutely absurd, and clearly was way too much. But ultimately, he can't control that, and we shouldn't slander him for it. The scrutiny for that should be directed towards Ed Woodward, the United higher-ups, and Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. Maguire is a player in bad form during a bad spell for his club, literally the worst spell possible for his club, and as captain he was always going to receive a large brunt of that, and to be fair, he hasn't dealt with it well whatsoever. But this doesn't mean that he's completely finished. Long-term, United should look to bring in a young centre-back comfortable with playing on the left side of a defence, while also being very comfortable in possession. Maguire is 29 and isn't getting much younger, but a priority in Ten Hag's first season should not and will not be to remove Harry Maguire from the team.